based on the true story of Chesley Sullenberger, who famously brought Flight 1549 safely down on the Hudson River in 2009. There is a line in which he says, "I've flown over 1 million people over 40 years. I'm going to be judged on 208 seconds." The 208 seconds being between the time that the plane took off and the time that he managed to unbelievably bring it down in what is now known as the Miracle on the Hudson. Here's a clip very shortly after takeoff from LaGuardia when the plane is struck by, as he said in that interview, a flock of Canada geese.
Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is Cactus 1549. Hit birds. We've lost thrust on both engines. We are turning back towards LaGuardia.
Which engine did you lose?
Both engines. Ignition.
Thrust levers confirm. Idle.
Cactus 1549, if we can get it for you, do you want to try to land runway 13?
We are unable. We may end up in the Hudson.
It's going to be left traffic, runway 31.
Unable.
Okay, what do you need to land?
No reload after 30 seconds. Engine master 1 and 2 confirm off.
Too low,
Off.
Terrain. Too low. Terrain. Too low. Terrain. Too low. Terrain.
This is the captain. Brace for impact.
So
I've got goosebumps. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, one of the most remarkable things about it is the level of calm in his voice and the voice of the co-pilot played by Aaron Eckhart in one of 2 films that he has out this week, which is, an accurate representation of the way in which they behaved in the cockpit. So since the story is that it's 208 seconds, and as you said in the interview, we all know how it ends, how it played out, because it's such a brief thing, what do you then make the movie about? And what Tom Hanks says is, well, you make it about acts 2 and 3. You make the movie about what happens afterwards, because even during the title sequence, you get a version of the initial flight. And what the filmmakers do, therefore, is that they basically construct the drama around the investigation, which happened afterwards, which, as he said in that interview, actually went on for something like 18 months. And you also get interspersed dream sequences in which he has terrifying visions of what may have happened had he not, successfully managed to bring the plane down on the Hudson, had he actually had it struck buildings. There's a line in the film in which somebody says, it's a happy story in New York. It's a rarity at the moment, particularly with aeroplanes involved. And so one of the things that the film does is he has these sort of nightmares, these visions of how things could have worked out. And there's another line in it in which he says to his wife, I want you to know I did the best I could. And Clint Eastwood has always said that what his attitude towards filmmaking is, he's very workmanlike. It's a good, solid job. And it is easy to imagine that the thing that attracted Eastwood to this story is that all the way through, Sully says, I was a man doing his job. I did my job. That's what I was. And he's suddenly caught up in the middle of this maelstrom, some people calling him a hero, and then there's the investigatory board. But he just says, I'm just a man doing my job. Tom Hanks is brilliant at that. I mean, he is absolutely the man that you want to play that character, because he's solid, reliable, and Clint Eastwood is the director that you would think of as doing that, unfussy, unflashy, very when you said that what happened when Tom Hanks rang up Clint Eastwood was Clint Eastwood said, yeah, I think it worked out fine. That was his whole comment. And you want to see it? Well, I just think it worked out fine. There are some problems. One of them is, and this was addressed somewhat in that interview, that since the jeopardy doesn't exist in the outcome of the flight, you have to put the jeopardy into the investigation. And there has been some worry about whether or not the investigation is seen as more inquisitorial than it actually was. Because what happens is, when Sully is investigated about how this happened, the tone right from the beginning seems to be almost pantomimely aggressive. And it is fairly clear that what's happened is that the film has decided to up the ante there, to make those confrontations seem more aggressive than perhaps they were. I mean, I wasn't there in the actual hearings, but there has certainly been stuff from the NTSB saying that it wasn't like this. We were doing exactly as Tom Hanks said. He said they weren't inquisitorial. They were doing their job. They're doing what they have to do, which is to investigate how this happened. But the film certainly attempts to in its dramatization of that, certainly makes it a much more kind of, goody-baddie sort of relationship. When the pilot and co-pilot together in a cab at one point, Erica says, it worked out well. Why are they trying to prove that we did something wrong? And of course, what their argument is, that's not what they were doing. What they were doing was investigating whether what happened was what should have happened and what could have happened. And in fact, all the investigations ended up as we know. So there are certainly sections in it in which you feel that the drama is being over-constructed in order to fill a dramatic purpose, rather than to simply tell the story as it is, which for me was a slightly false step, because the story itself is remarkable, and we do get to see that 208 seconds. I think we see at least two, but then there's also sort of partial versions.
Yeah, and also he imagines
versions of it,
different versions where it all ends.
And even though you know how it's going to pan out, there is those sequences are really tense. I mean, really, really tense. There are also, however, certain falls into cliche. We get flashbacks to Sully's experience as a pilot, which kind of tries to tie this. At one point, he's told by somebody, always remember, never forget to fly the plane. There is a little bit in which we do a kind of airport-like setup of some of the passengers, like these little thumbnail vignette sketches, somebody in a gift shop, somebody racing with their father to get on the plane, all those little stories, which felt, if anything, rather obviously constructed. So I think there is a really strong narrative. I think Tom Hanks is perfectly cast. I think Eastwood's direction is workmanlike, and I think in its weaker moments, it tries to construct too much of an antagonistic dialogue between him and the investigators, because in the end, I didn't need that. I just needed Tom Hanks as Sully doing that when it happened, and then an investigation which didn't need to be that aggressive.
And I think it does do a good job of explaining how the rescue was done by so many people.
Yes, absolutely. It's really, really, and as Tom Hanks said in that interview, because everyone was miraculously there and immediately leapt in.